Hey everybody, it's Payne here. I myself have been getting more and more intrigued in a new shonen manga that have been getting big lately, but one I haven't been able to get super hooked into even after watching the anime and the movie was Jujutsu Kaisen. So I decided as a video that I'd give you all my own personal thoughts on how good each arc in the manga is, trying to keep details to a limit. Currently the manga is sitting on 218 chapters and 14 arcs including the current one. And for this video, I'll have the timeline of the video cut into sections, so you may skip to one that you're most intrigued in on my own personal thoughts. I'm going to be rating the manga in total and each arc by a 1 to 10 rating, so we have a definitive rating scale. Make sure to give a like and subscribe for more content like this. Now the first arc is the Cursed Child arc. I was actually surprised that it was a pretty good time for me. I feel they actually do get a good grasp on teaching a new reader about what curses are and how they actually affect the world, as well as their grading of spirits or Jujutsu sorcerers. The first chapter was easily the low point of this arc, but don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean it was all bad. That just means it goes from being good to being even better. And one big thing about this manga I liked was how dark some of the intense panels were. My personal thought on this is if you want to read the manga, read it in black and white and not colored. You can really see how intense the moments get with how monstrous the art gets on the page. I had glued my eyes to some of these larger panels because of just how awesome they were. Now there was a lot of good characters in this first volume, but the one thing that got me was Yuta himself. I feel he was a very interesting protagonist and I never really felt bored reading what he had talked about. I understand that some people might not like a wimpy character, but personally I actually liked him, especially when they go through development like Yuta did. Obviously I'm not going to tell you what happens, but it's an amazing and kind of beautiful story this arc goes through. Also, I very much enjoyed the main villain of this arc. He's got such a presence to him that makes you stick to your pages because of how intense his moments are. I just love every character in this arc actually, besides I think the side villains that kind of just came off as one-off villains to me. None of them were very interesting and I'm probably gonna completely forget about them unless they show up again. So yeah, I'd have to say good job in your first arc. It was a very good way of introducing people into the world and the manga itself, and yeah. I'd have to give Jujutsu Kaisen 0, aka the Cursed Child arc, a 9 out of 10. Very good start for people who want some nice art. Also a good and quick introduction into the world and some badass fights. The second arc is the Fearsome Womb Arc. I gotta say the start of this is actually very fast paced. I think that works to this manga's advantage. There wasn't really a time where I sat down and I was waiting for things to hurry up. I actually got through it really quickly. The introduction to the main four characters being Itadori, Megumi, Nobara, and Gojo were all memorable, and I don't think I can really pick a favorite right now. Itadori is a loving extrovert with great instincts and a little dumb. Megumi is smart, tries to be cool and collected no matter the circumstances. Nobara is a confident badass who works well with a team despite being rough and aggressive at times. And lastly, Gojo, being their teacher, is obviously the overconfident type who has the skills to back it up while also being comedic and entertaining at times. A compliment I want to throw in is that the fights in this arc are very entertaining. The art never got so messy that it took me away from the experience. It was all just a very great time despite how fast it gets. Also, the introduction and explaining of Sukuna, the main villain, I presume is actually a trope I've seen before, but it's given a twist that makes the plot way more interesting, where Itadori has himself in a corner because of him eating the finger but also becoming the hydrogen bomb versus coughing baby meme against any curses he comes against. And even then he's not in full control of Sukuna. Sukuna kind of trolls Itadori sometimes, telling him he can go fuck himself, because it's just a really funny reminder that Sukuna is both evil and cunning. So basically using Sukuna as like a monkey's paw when he needs to get out of bad situations. It's just not a win or lose situation. It's more of a loss. And while you had an idea of how they rate special grades to normal curses, this arc actually goes more in detail for anyone interested in learning the difference between a special grade and the curses they fought in the first 5 chapters. Alright, now I'm gonna go ahead and rate the first arc. I would have to say it was very good. I'd just have to give the Fearsome Womb Arc a 10 out of 10 simply because it perfectly explains everything down to the curses rating, the school's meaning, how curses work even more in detail than JJK 0, domain expansions, and the characters were all entertaining and were never boring. The fights were all good reads and had their own twist to them. And lastly, the art never felt like it got rushed or low quality. I had a really good time reading this and I'd highly recommend it to people who really need something to hop onto. I don't think I've read a manga that has as good explanations to their power scaling as Jujutsu Kaisen has. this is really just some good stuff that deserves to be admired by a wide audience. And so now that that's done, let's move on to the next part. Now we're on the versus Mahito arc. One thing you get from the start of the arc is that no matter what part of the series you're in, these curses are going to kill people in the most inhumane ways possible, and I'm all for it. It's something you get from the beginning of the series, but by this point it definitely solidified its horror aspect in weird ways. These curses kill people. It's a horrifying experience and separates itself from the other big shonen manga that are big right now. And with all the different ways cursed energy is used in the manga as power scaling abilities, it just shows how diverse of an arsenal using cursed energy can get. Also, this arc changes up things a bit by separating Itadori from his main team. I'm not going to spoil how or why, but I am going to say that I think it was a good idea to do so in order to give Itadori the screen time and character development he needs in this series since it just started. Itadori up to this point has been questioning the morality of the job of being a Jujutsu sorcerer. Many sorcerers would outright kill or leave victims behind if it meant keeping themselves alive. Itadori by the end of this arc realizes what needs to be done while also holding on to his humanity of giving people who already crossed that line a second chance if he believes they weren't truly bad people at heart. I think this trusting nature to Itadori is what separates him from other people and makes him pretty unique. And on top of that, this arc introduces a lot of people's favorite character, Nanami, to him being a calm and collected type in a more mature way than Megumi from his experience. But his ability is just so fun to see him activate upon hits that I was hyped the hell up every time he nailed it. But this arc does have some downsides, and please don't eradicate me in the comments for this opinion, but there were a couple times where the arc got a little messy and sketched all around some panels where I either struggled to figure out what happened at the time, or I just was a little put off from the style it was drawn in. The manga so far had done very well with clean pages and actually used this sketchy art style to its advantage. And while it does still do that for the most part, there were times it did just take me out of it for the moment to comprehend what was happening. So now that we've done that, let's all get to the rating. I will have to say the beginning of the arc isn't as interesting as the end. It mainly uses its time in the pages to relay a message on bullying as well as introducing the characters. But a good portion of the time, I did like and enjoy the arc. Its art raised and dropped in quality the more I read, but it never got to a point of being absolutely terrible or ruining the experience for me. So I have to give the versus Mahito arc a 7 out of 10. Now, before you type your comments below about how I'm being unreasonable here, let me just say a 7 out of 10 is not bad at all. It's actually fairly good. The reason why this sits at a 7 and why the last arc 6 out of 10 is because I feel the last arc had a nicer, more consistent art, the story was more engaging, and it perfectly explained the world's mechanics without breaking me out of the story. This arc just wasn't at the same level of quality, and the story wasn't as interesting to me personally. Remember, this is a personal rating scale, and you yourself could love this arc and give it a 10 out of 10, and I wouldn't mind at all. Alright, now let's move on to the next arc. Okay, hey everyone, I took a break from this video for about 2 days just to give myself a little bit of a break from reading and editing the video for a little bit because it's a lot, but yeah, fuck it. Now we're going on to the fourth arc, the Kyoto Goodwill event arc. So one thing I can say for sure is, this arc fucking slaps. There was only really one moment throughout it that made me want to skip pages just because of how boring the fight got. And the fight I'm talking about is probably the least important and least interesting fight that resembles a cat and mouse race to catch the other person. Otherwise, every single fight in this arc was at least interesting, it had a meaning behind being shown, and they grew the side characters into people I would like to see more of. I like manga in particular that don't just drown side characters just because they're unimportant and just because they aren't the MCs. But there are two fights in this arc that really stand out above the rest, and it's at the beginning and the end of the arc. Like once you reach the last like 10 or so chapters, the part where shit really goes down, it reminds you of how the last 4 fights before this weren't anywhere near as interesting. So yeah, there really isn't much to say about this part. It's a fun time and it does good on growing the side characters significantly to where you may grow attached to them. I think out of the new 6 students from the other school, I only really cared about 2 of them who came off as interesting, one being a very obvious beloved character and the other being the most unique of them all. So yeah, for the Kyoto Goodwill event arc, I'd have to give this about an 8 out of 10. It's more engaging since it's very well paced and the art is much cleaner than it was in the versus Mahito arc, where instead here I was never taken out of the experience besides in that one fight where I really wish I just skipped over since it was a waste of time. But the high point in this arc is easily the interaction between 2 characters in the final fight. Alright, now let's move on. Now we got the Death Painting arc. Yeah, that's right, it's my arc that I myself have become a Jujutsu Kaisen character, and yeah, no, I'm kidding, this arc is alright, I guess. While reading this part, it does good on growing one character I wanted to see more of, so that's good, but on the other hand, this arc isn't really anything big or significant in the grand scheme of things. I never had a bad time reading it. I actually think the fights here are really cool. It does a good job in relaying how far our trio has gone since the beginning of this manga. For the most part, the enemies in this arc were interesting, but not anything to boast about compared to the recent main villains taking the stage. And it really is just a short arc, so I can't expect it to flesh out a crazy part of the story. So for the Death Painting arc, I'd have to give it a 7 out of 10. It's pretty much as good as an experience as the versus Mahito arc, which is pretty much the reason for giving this rating. Alright, now let's move on. Okay, so I'm going to be making this a 2-part video simply to see how much people enjoyed this one. It really took a lot of time to do. And yeah, if you enjoyed this and want the rest of the manga reviewed by me, let's hit 50 likes and I'll release a second part, which will have the rest of the manga in detail from my perspective. And feel free to let me know what other anime or topics you'd like me to talk about. Take care, everyone, and goodbye.